So really not a lot of change since our last outlook. If anything, I think our flood risk has edged down just a bit since we've made it through the spring thaw here for the most part. We're still waiting for some of the snowpack to our north to melt and make its way into the Mississippi and some of our rivers that flow from northern Wisconsin as well. And really contributing factors to this normal spring flood risk. We really had an overall drier pattern during the fall and even through much of this winter. So our soils had a chance to dry out and recover from those very wet conditions that we were experiencing the previous few years. And also our streamflow values are at or near normal levels. The warmer and above normal temperatures that we experienced here the first few weeks of March, that melted much of the snowpack across the area. And thankfully, that was a very kind of an ideal melt, a very kind of gradual, slow melt, warming up above freezing during the day and then going back below freezing at night. So really a perfect melt. Couldn't be much better than that. So as we continue to see some of that remaining snowpack and recent rainfall make its way, the snowpack melting and recent rainfall make its way into the river systems, we can expect some river rises along the Mississippi River, the Black River, Wisconsin River, and some other rivers across central Wisconsin, and I'll touch on that here towards the end of the presentation. So as always, keep in mind that even though we're in good shape now, that could change. The future flood risk now will be primarily driven by future precipitation events. So stay up to date on the latest information, especially as we get closer here to our warmer season and the thunderstorm season. Just looking at our spring flood threat checklist, not much has changed here either. Really pretty good across the board with the exception of spring precipitation. That's kind of an unknown yet. And since we're in a La Nina pattern, there are chances for above normal precipitation, and it looks like we are going to get into a more active weather pattern here starting next week. So we'll have to keep an eye on those precipitation events to see if they have any impact here on our river levels. So current stream flow conditions across the region, the graphic on the upper left shows an average stream flow across 260 USGS sites across the upper Mississippi River Basin. So that's looking at an average of the last 45 days. And the red line indicates kind of where that average stream flow index is in relationship to, is it near normal? Is it lower than normal or higher than normal? In a wet pattern. And really it's right near that normal level. Looking back, the graphic on the lower left, looking back the past several years, all the way back to 1999, that shows that stream flow index during that time frame. And you can see that there's oscillations there between wet years or dry years. And to the far right portion of that graphic there, the red line shows that we are returning to more near normal values. And not the case a couple of years ago or the last several years where we're in a very wet pattern and experiencing very high stream levels across the region. So we have recovered from that in many locations. And the image on the right kind of showing similar information here. This is breaking it down by basin. This is looking at the stream flow average for the past 28 days. And this is broken down by percentile class. And anywhere you see the green values, that's where the stream flows are near normal. And then they get into the oranges and reds when they're below normal, or into the blues when they're above normal. So really across the whole area, you're pretty much in the normal range. There's a few experiencing some higher flows and some experiencing some below normal flows. Surface soil moisture looks like we've maybe dried out just a little bit. It's really, we're not seeing an anomalously wet or dry soil conditions across the local area. You can see pockets across the U.S. here. A pretty good chunk of the southwest U.S. is experiencing very dry conditions, and they are in drought. But closer to home here, across the upper Mississippi River Basin, if anything, we're probably edging more towards drier conditions, especially across portions of Minnesota, Iowa, and into Wisconsin. Snowfall this winter, well, we've lost much of the snow that we had out there. The image on the left shows the daily station snow depth for reporting stations, and really across the local area, it's pretty much all gone. A few shaded areas may still have some snowpack remaining. Really what's left is across northern Wisconsin, the UP, and up into northern Minnesota. However, weather system coming in early next week could change that. We could have some snow on the ground. But the good news is we've melted quite a bit of frost in the ground now. So runoff shouldn't be significant with that snow melt, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. The image on the right shows the percent of mean of accumulated snowfall for the entire season. That's going all the way back to July 1st of last year. And really, we're right around normal. Those kind of whiter shades and yellower shades, those are values that are closer or even edging towards below normal for snowfall for an entire season. And we did have some heavier snow events across Iowa and into southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois. So that's indicated here on the image. But right across a good portion of the upper Mississippi River Basin, it's been below normal. Snow liquid, well, really no snow close to home here to really discuss here as far as any snow liquid goes. We've lost most of that. The remaining snowpack in the north, there's still some areas that have an inch plus of snowpack, but that's mainly getting into the snowbelt regions of Lake Superior. Talking about those dry conditions, I just wanted to briefly cover the U.S. Drought Monitor, and much of the upper Mississippi River Basin is experiencing abnormally dry conditions. So we'll see if this trend continues, and if it does, we could potentially slip into maybe some drought conditions. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but overall it's been pretty dry across the region. Frost depth across the area, like I had mentioned, we've lost most of the frost. Although those kind of red shaded points you see there on the map, those are areas that have no frost or only a couple of inches of frost. So that's good news. There are some wet soils out there from the thaw and from some frost still coming out of the ground in some locations. So just have to watch that with our next few precipitation events over the next week or two. But we will, continue this trend of likely seeing some warmer temperatures, at least probably out towards the end of the month. So we'll continue to thaw the frost that's in the ground out there. So now looking ahead to kind of an extended outlook for temperatures and precipitation. Are we seeing anything in the longer term models that would indicate, a near normal, below normal, or above normal tendency here? And looking through the period March 17th through the 21st, there's a chance that we could see some below normal temperatures, but really there's a strong indication that we'll see below normal precipitation, so around a 40% chance of that, seeing a probability of seeing below normal precip. So really looks cooler and drier overall here the next week or two. Looking out through the entire month, we're expecting on average above normal temperatures, and there is a slight chance for above normal precipitation. Now let's look out even further for the entire period here, March through May, and kind of the same story. We're continuing to see signals for above normal temperatures and above normal precipitation. So here's just a screenshot of forecast river levels through March 24th, kind of showing all the forecast points across the area, and the river forecasts that are currently in effect indicate there are a few sites that are expected to rise in the action stage. So we're mainly looking at within bank rises as the snow melt and recent rainfall make its way through the river system. So we're not expecting any widespread flooding at this time. But like I said, we are going into a more active pattern. We'll have to keep an eye on that. So in summary, the overall spring flood risk is currently near normal, and it is expected to stay that way here for a while. I do expect rises on the Mississippi, Wisconsin, Black rivers, and as we get into central Wisconsin, portions of the Yellow River and Lemonweir rivers, and much of that is due to the snow melt. Expect drier conditions here, or the drier conditions from the late summer into autumn of 2020 that continued into this winter. Kind of expect that theme to continue, below normal precipitation on average. We really had limited snowpack and a slow melt this year, and that shallow frost certainly helped us out. So much of with those drier soils and shallow frost, much of that snow melt made its way into the ground. So saw very little in the way of any significant river responses. But again, we'll have to watch as we see the rises start now along some of the main stem rivers. Any remaining ice or area rivers will continue to thaw over the next few weeks. So there's not much out there now, but there could be some pockets of ice remaining. Expect that to melt. And really, this year's future risk is all going to be driven by future precipitation trends.